The Tao of Self-Confidence, episode 920. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. Visit our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits. Well, hello friend, welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, and today is a special episode. First off, this will be our last episode for the season, and we'll have a brand new episode on September 2, 2025. But today I am actually being interviewed by John Wang, who is the host of Big Asian Energy. So we're going to talk about my new book, Bridging the Confidence Gap, among other things. And so I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And again, this will be the last episode for the season, and we'll have a brand new one on September 2, 2025.
Welcome back to Big Asian Energy. This is a big one, I think, for many, many people out there. It's a question of confidence. And many of us probably at some point have had an idea or something we wanted to do, but just felt like we're lacking that sense of confidence, that unstoppability that really makes us, give us ability to step in and take full action. Well, today's guest is here to talk all about that. Sheena Yap is the author of not only a book that she is now coming out to talk about, but she's also the host of the Tao of Self-Confidence podcast, which has reached over 1 million downloads. And she's also a Wall Street Journal bestselling author, a keynote speaker, and she's interviewed something like, 800 people? That's a lot of people, by the way. 800 people on specifically breaking barriers to confidence and leadership. Her work has previously been on everywhere from Fox, NBC News, Mind Valley, Manila Times. And today we're diving into her second book, Bridging the Confidence Gap. First and foremost, welcome to the show.
Hey, John. So glad to be back again. And first off, congrats on your book. Can't wait to read that. Can't wait to see it out in the stores. I'll definitely check out Indigo and see if they have it there and take photos for you. So excited for your book to come out. But yeah, thank you again for having me on the show.
Oh man, I'm so excited. Yeah, that's right. We're both we're both authors. So we both have a book coming out this month. So it's a big thing. Because I think there's such a core resonance. We talk about slightly different things. My book, Big Asian Energy, of course, talks more about it from breaking through barriers and leadership. But I think that at the core of what we really talk about is that same sense of authentic confidence. Like not this like, oh, I gotta like hype myself or gas myself up, as the kids say these days, like gas myself up, to like feel that sense of temporary motivation, but a deeper sense of self-confidence. Is this something that you cover in your new book?
Yeah, first off, my new book, Bridging the Confidence Gap, How Empowered Women Change the World, really stemmed from a report from the World Economic Forum that gender parity would be achieved at the earliest in the year 2154. So it's a little under 130 years from now. But actually, that stat is from when I wrote the book, which I wrote last summer, and now it's delayed 4 more years. So now it's the year 2158. And it's mind-boggling to hear something like that, right? Because it's going to take at least 5 generations of women in order for us to see that. And at the rate we're going, it's actually I believe it's going to take longer. When you look at countries like Afghanistan, where women's rights, basic human rights, are totally stripped away from them, we still have a long way to go. And there's so many amazing women out there who can do amazing things, right? Like, and I mean that. I totally believe women are so capable, but what really stops them from moving forward is how they see themselves. And so there's that gap, right? Knowing we're capable and believing that we're capable. I think that's really huge, because if you don't believe in yourself, you're not going to go out there and do it. And I understand there's still a lot of things women go through in general through society. And I talk about that in the book. But if we learn to just believe in our potential, believe in our capability, and just go for it, just imagine what we can achieve. So I'm really excited about this book. I'm still, of course, nervous, because anytime you put something out there, it's nerve-wracking, right?
Terrifying.
You just don't know what the outcome's going to be. And even though I've written 2 books, it still gets I still get nervous. I still have anxiety because because we don't know, right? We're like we've been, especially in Asian culture, we've been taught to fear the unknown instead of embracing it. So I've been learning to unlearn that part and learn that the unknown, it could be the most amazing thing. So I do touch on different things such as self promotion, which is something women have been conditioned to say that it's tacky when it's not. Learning to the formula for leadership, learning to ready, fire, aim. So, really taking action and pivoting as we go, taking a deep dive on this confidence gap because I didn't even realize that this gap was so huge, right? In fact, what really made me start talking about the confidence gap was I was in a speaking group coaching program, and I was told to do a 10-minute speech that I had to memorize. That was my homework. And so I was looking for topics on confidence, and that's when the confidence gap came about. And I realized, oh, I could talk about this. And that really, from that talk, it stemmed through this whole topic on confidence gap and bridging that gap. And I like the word bridging because it's not just women, men and women can work together to bridge this gap. I mean, there's amazing men out there who are allies. I mean, you're one of them, John. It's always great to see you and see what you've done and always being a great ally for everybody. And when we can all work together, that's how we can create that change. So, yeah, I mean, first off, I didn't even think I would write one book for Wiley, let alone two books. So this is a big deal, especially in the month of May, which is Asian Heritage Month. It's such an
Yeah.
important month to highlight this work because there's not that many Asian authors out there who are signed into big traditional companies, big traditional publishing companies. And so it's important to share it out, to shout it out there, and have that big Asian energy to be confident enough to show others what's possible, especially in our community. So, yeah.
Thank you for the shout out. I really appreciate that. And of course, I'm a really big believer that rising tides raises all ships. And really, I feel like, especially growing up in such an individualist society where we're always already almost primed to be hyper focused about ourselves, I kind of miss and love the collectivist culture, the culture that I grew up in, that was so focused on how do we support one another and create this network to help one another rise. And this is why I love the idea of bridging that gap. I would love to hear a little bit more specifically about this concept, about the gap, the confidence gap. It sounds a lot like you're saying women experience confidence at a different level, perhaps, than men do. Is that where it's kind of coming from?
Yes, that's totally right, John. So if a man and a woman were to apply for a promotion at work, the man might be like 50% ready, right? And he'll just go for it. He'll be fine if he gets rejected. He's happy if he got a result. As a woman, we might be 110% ready, but still something holds us back. And it really stems on how we perceive ourselves, feeling not good enough. And I'm not speaking for all women. Of course, there's women out there who are like firecrackers and actual bosses and really just take action. But most women do deal with this, right? I've spoken to a lot of women who, even women with high corporate roles, that still feel imposter syndrome or feel like they're not good enough or there's someone better out there. Even myself, I've gone through that. I remember when Wiley approached me with the first book, I almost said no because I didn't think I was the person to write it. Like, I had no idea what leadership looked like. How am I supposed to write a book about leadership if I didn't even know what leadership looked like in my eyes? So, um, and we've seen this time and time again. It's not that women aren't capable, they are capable, but because they don't believe in themselves, they feel like they're not capable to take that action. And it's funny because I had a girlfriend whose boyfriend applied for a managerial position and got it. And so she was ready to apply the same, like a managerial position in her work. And she asked her boyfriend, what did you do to get that yes, right? Like, what were your strategies? What were your tips that you would give me? And it's funny because he said three words and he said, I don't know. And so, yeah. And
He's
so,
just like, what do
and
you mean you don't already have that belief in yourself? What?
yeah. So he was just like, he didn't know because he probably didn't know. He just went for it and just hope for the best. And I know sometimes it's scary to do that. I get it. I mean, I go out there, I talk to people, I reach out to a lot of people. and it's still very scary. I make a lot of mistakes. But the results happen because I go out there and do it. If I make a mistake, I understand where I made that mistake. I can course correct it. If I get rejected, I get feedback. And sometimes rejection isn't a hard no, it's just no at that moment in time. And so for me, it's important to work through that, to keep to see those rejections so that it builds your strength to keep moving forward, especially in this crazy world that we're in right now. There's so many things happening, and I'm out there, putting myself out there, applying for different things, reaching out to different people. And yeah, there's days where I just want to eat my feelings because it's so depressing at times when you get like 5 rejections in a day, right? And I think this is something that we need to speak more on, because we get way more no's than yes. But the people who do say yes make a huge difference. And so sometimes you got to go through like a thousand, 100, 1,000 no's to get that one yes. And that's most entrepreneurs, that's most successful people. They've been rejected time and time again. You look at like J.K. Rowling, she got rejected 50 times or by 50 publishers, and look where she is today. You look at Thomas Edison, 10,000 ways for a light bulb not to work, and look where it is today. And I share some of that in the book. Women who failed forward, who failed and still was able to create a big positive impact for other women and to pave that way. So, yes, the confidence gap does exist. I've spoken to a lot of women who question their abilities, and it doesn't help too that other people question our ability, right? Unfortunately, that's the hard truth. I was watching this Netflix show on with Kate Hudson. I keep forgetting the title, but basically her father, or no, her brother, promoted her to be the president of their basketball company. And her brothers, asked her if she was capable. And for me, that kinda triggered me because it's like, it's 2025 and we're still going through this. Time and time again, we get questioned our abilities, and so every time now when I talk to women at, conferences or virtual events, I remind them that they're more capable than they realize. And yes, you'll get outside forces that will tell you that you may not be capable, or they may question your capability, but you have to know that you're more than capable, because I also have to remind myself that and realize that my belief is really important, because if I don't believe in myself, then I'm not gonna go out there and do it. Like, in order to have big Asian energy, you really need to believe in yourself to go out there and put yourself out there, especially coming from a culture where we're taught to hide behind our culture, hide behind your last name, don't make any noise, don't do anything that will tarnish the family name, things like that. I mean, that's not easy, especially when you have conservative Asian relatives who are like questioning what you're doing, or like telling you, why don't you go get a job? Why don't you do this? Why aren't you this and that? So I mean, there's still a lot of outside voices that stop us from moving forward. And that's why doing that inner work is so important. Seeing um the things we still go through today, being aware of it is important, and finding ways to move forward with that. So yeah.
You mentioned the inner work. This is where I think is the most interesting piece. So, I mean, the simple question really is how does somebody who knows, hey, whatever the background conditioning experiences is, whether it's because the people around me are challenging me, because I think that's a big part of it, right? As you said, it's you can believe in yourself and then you step out and you put something out there. And the first thing that people say or the people around you say is they look at it and they kind of go, I'm not certain about it, or like immediately puts you down. It has an impact on that inner identity. It has an impact on how we view our work. And we kind of do start questioning and go, maybe I thought that I was capable, but maybe I'm not. How do you advise people to, and especially women, to bridge that gap to take action?
I think the most important thing, and I know it's easier said than done, is that we need to learn to let go of what everyone thinks of us, right? And this it's important to know that we're not gonna please everyone, for sure. I mean, what I may write might not resonate with someone, and that's totally fine. But I focus on the people that I can resonate with, who do gain value out of it and keep moving forward. I mean, there's people who've told me my book wasn't great, or I need to go to grammar class, things like that, like so many different things. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And a lot of people who will, I guess, the keyboard warriors, like when you think about it, what have they done in their life that's really created a positive impact? Like I've written a book, I've put myself out there. Is it the most perfect book? Maybe not. But at least I did something, and I realized I can learn from my mistakes and create an even better book. We're not It's not going to be perfect at all.
No,
Like, far
no.
from it. And so when we focus on the people that do resonate with what we do, it just makes things a lot easier. And in fact, sometimes you don't get as much hate as you think you do when you focus on the on the purpose, who you're aligned with, things like that.
Hmm. I love what you said about purpose and alignment, because that's exactly what it is, right? For me, I've had so many days where I've questioned what I was doing, especially in the writing process. Is if anybody who's tried to create anything that's worth, I think anything that's worth doing, which is anything that's worth doing requires putting yourself out there. It requires facing critics. It requires the fact that you're going to put it out there and not everyone's going to like it. I often point to the, examples of like some of the greatest movies ever made, some of the greatest pieces of art that's ever been created. And you'll find there are people who hate it. There are people who hate the Mona Lisa. There are people who hate The Godfather. There are people who hate anything that's out there. There's going to be people who hate it because it's not about the work. It's about how they see themselves in relationship to the work. And I love what you said. It's just like at a certain point, you can't listen to the haters because you don't know what they're bringing. Maybe they're projecting something on you. You don't know what it is that their context is. There's pain underneath it, and for whatever reason, your work might be triggering that. A big part of it might just be, why do you get to say this and I don't? And that in of itself is enough to trigger people's emotions. But it doesn't mean that it's not worth putting out. In fact, I think that that's when it's most worth putting out. When you know, hey, I think I could step into this position and do a better job. I think that I have an idea that does great. And you're feeling that self doubt is oftentimes the spotlight that tells you, no, jump in 2 feet first. Don't hold back. This is where you need to step deeper into that work. And it can be so hard to do. Is there any practices that you've shared with the people you've worked with, or, in the book, that can help us address that inner critic voice?
I think the most important thing that I love to share with people, especially as women, is you don't have to do it alone, right? This
Hmm.
journey of confidence, it doesn't have to be alone. I mean, you're reading this book because you want to learn something new. You join a women's book a group because you want to connect with other like-minded women. And so learning to ask for help, learning to receive help is really important, because if not, we're going to get stuck. Everyone has a blind spot. I have one, you have one. And that's why having a second and third pair of eyes, or even fourth pair of eyes, is so important, so they can pinpoint your blind spots, correct it, and move forward. So for me, you don't have to do it alone. And that could be reading a book, listening to a podcast like this, watching YouTube videos. That gives you that aha moment to keep moving forward, to realize you're not in this alone. I mean, I love watching like movie stars or interviews, because they talk about what they had to do to get to where they are today, the struggles they've been through. And that helps me feel better about myself, because I realize, okay, everyone goes through this. I'm not the only one. Like, I'm not the only one who has bad days, who gets depressed, who eats their feelings. Everybody else does it. It's just not as many people talk about it. And especially with social media, it's always these perfect curated photos, thinking that's what the audience wants, when actually, um the audience is actually craving more authenticity. They're sick and tired of of seeing all these perfectly curated photos, and especially in the climate that we're in, it's a little bit uncertain. We People crave more authenticity. They want to know, how can I build more confidence? How can I show up in the world as myself? And if they see someone like you and I doing it, they realize what's possible, especially in our community, right? We don't see it that often. I'm still very passionate about building representation. It's the reason why I do the work that I do, because growing up in Toronto, I never had that, right? I never saw anybody in the media that looked like me. And I felt really ashamed of who I was. I felt ashamed of my own culture. I wanted to have blonde hair and blue eyes to feel accepted. And, I don't want that for our current and future generations. I want them to show up as their true selves, be proud of their Asian heritage, and go out there and create amazing things. Like being in North America, we can go out there and make a difference. Is it going to be easy? No, of course not. If it was, everybody would be doing it. But it's also worth the ride when you can see like your book at the bookstore, doing book signings, connecting with people you never thought you would connect with. Like these are all things that I never thought was possible. Like even have like with the first book having a paperback limited edition that Indigo wanted. Like I didn't know that was a thing. I was surprised to see that. It was cool to see that at the same time. And then even meeting the CEO of Indigo, was really
Wow.
awesome. I got to meet her last summer at the head office. Very nice lady. And it was just, this wouldn't have happened if I didn't put myself out there, if I didn't make the mistakes, if I didn't believe in my own capabilities and just go for it. Most of the time when I do things, like I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's okay to say, but I'm gonna say it anyways. Like,
I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
yeah,
And you know what I
I
realize is that the more people I interview who are, at the top levels, or people I even work with who are at those levels, is nobody does. Nobody does. I am constantly blown away. I was working with somebody who's fairly high level at a major company recently. One of the top 5 tech companies that you probably use often. Most of us use often. And he was quite well positioned. He's quite up there. And I was shocked at how there's this overwhelming sense. Just like, I sometimes I'm afraid that people are just going to find out that I have no idea what I'm really doing, that I don't know how to do my job. And I pointed out, I'm like, well, you don't know how to do this job because nobody knows how to do this job. No one has been in this exact position, in this exact timing, in this exact climate. It is a constantly rapidly changing world. Whatever it is you think other people know, they might not know as much as you, and they might not be the right person because no one has seen the outcome yet. And how will they ever know until you step in or somebody steps in and does it? And if you don't do it, chances are somebody else might take over and do it instead of you, right? There's that, I think it's a Benjamin Franklin quote, opportunities are never lost. Someone will claim the ones you miss. And I think that is one of the most powerful motivators I ever had when I was growing up, was like, just take the chance. You never know. It might crash spectacularly, in which case you just learned a great lesson, or it might succeed. And now you have something that you've always wanted.
I love that. And I love that quote because yeah, I go out there and shoot my shot and don't it's not like I don't get scared. I still get scared. Very scared. But I also realize if I don't shoot my shot, then someone else will do it, especially women in the office. I've heard so many women in the office who who are in business meetings and they have this great idea for that will help the company, and then they're too afraid to share it in the meeting because they think it's a dumb idea or no one's going to listen to them. And then their male coworker puts their hands up, says the same exact idea that they were thinking, and then now they get the credit for it. And so I always tell women, just share it. There's no such thing as a stupid idea, a stupid question. Like just put it out there because you never know who's going to come up and say, "Oh yeah, that is a great idea. Oh yeah, let's implement that." I've seen that time and time again. And then, the women who wanted to share it but are too afraid now regret it because they didn't get to do it. So, especially in especially in the climate that we're in, like life is so short. The older we get, like, things are happening. Like I was mentioning to you, my grandma passed away during last Christmas. And like, it just makes me realize how short life is. We had a family friend who passed away last week at such a young age, and you just never know what's going to happen. Um, so it's really important to shoot your shot to make the most out of your life because the only person who will regret it is yourself. And I learned that lesson a long time ago when my aunt died, passed away, like 14 almost 14 years ago. That actually helped me realize like I can do the same thing I do Monday to Friday, go to work, 40 hours a week. Um, and not that having a job is a bad thing. I think if you love your job, that's great, but not everybody loves their job. So I had to make a decision like, do I want to keep doing this or do I want to go out there and embrace the unknown and figure this out as I go? And I went for it. And it was scary. It was terrifying. I had no idea what I was going to do. I had no plan. I mean, I probably wouldn't advise what I do to anybody else because everyone has a different situation. Um, and also, being Asian, your family are like, what are you doing? Why did you quit your job? You're already successful. And I was like, but that's not my definition of success. If I waited till I was 60 to retire and really live life, like I would probably regret it. Cause like, what if I reach that age and I'm not as like fit? Like after your 40s, it just goes downhill, unfortunately. Like you have to take care of your health a hundred times better, right? Because like your metabolism slows down, you have aches and body, like
It
aches
really
and
is, yeah.
yeah, body parts that you didn't even
That's
realize
that's
what's
real.
yeah, so
100%, yeah.
yeah, and then women, unfortunately, like we're gonna go through menopause. That's gonna be a whole new thing. Like there's just so many things. So I was like, I want to live my life as in the moment that I can as much as I can. So like, you know, in my 30s, like in my early 30s, really, while I still am like at my optimal health, right? Not saying that I'm not, but of course it's not the same. It's totally not the same. Like I just felt like after 40, just like everything everything just started going downhill from there. So yeah.
I think we as a fellow for starting for 40-year old, um one thing I really am holding on to is just that we are going to go through different strengths at each stage, right? For anyone who has ever felt the story of, I'm too young, it's too early, I'm not experienced enough, or, I'm too old, I don't have the, whatever it is, that I'm too blank. I always remind them that, okay, the fact that you are young that's your strength. That's your actual edge right here. Because let's say that there's 10 people going for the same kind of opportunity and you are the youngest. Great. You bring a fresh view. You bring, you're not ingrained in something that's pre-existing, and you probably have more energy and understanding of the marketplace that other people don't. And if you're coming in and you're like, oh, I'm the oldest of the group, great. You're probably bringing more experience, more wisdom, more understanding, more experience dealing with the social elements of things than somebody who's younger. We bring different gifts at every single stage, and to not shoot your shot at each edge at each of those opportunities means that you're not bringing the gifts that you have in the moment. And the after I hit 40, I look back and I'm like, I do feel different. Energetically, I feel different. I have different strengths, and I wouldn't do the same things that I did, when I was in my 30s. I went wing walking in my 30s, which was, when you climb on top of the wings of an airplane as it does like loop de loops. I can't do that now because my wife would kill me. She would not approve that I would be, putting myself at risk in that way. But when I was in my 30s, I had that freedom. And, in my 20s, I backpacked through India and around the world living in $5 a night hostels. And I wouldn't go through that now because now my back hurts. when I don't, if I don't have the right pillow these days when I'm traveling and I'm staying at like one of the Marriott properties, I up until 3 a.m. Whereas back then, I was just passing out on this, on the steps of the train station. So yeah, each stage brings different things.
I love that. And yeah, I mean, just because you're at an age where you think you're too old, it doesn't mean you are.
No,
Of course, that's not what I'm saying. Um, it's important to know that you can start something at any age if you wanted. I wrote my first book with Wiley in my 40s, right? So I never thought that would ever happen. Like never in my wildest dreams did I think that. But here we are today. Not only did I write one, but now two books for the publisher, which is like still insane when I think about it. Like being Canadian, or Canadian, and then,
Canadians, yeah.
being signed for like one of the big like five publishers, like that's a big deal because the percentage of a person getting signed by a traditional publisher is like 1 to 2%. They said that's what I heard. So, and then being Asian, I feel like that's even less. So, um, being less, and then the chances of getting a second book written by a publisher is even lesser. So, like, the fact that I was able to do this, like, it's a big deal. I celebrate that. I share that out because I want people to realize it's possible and that you're never too old to start something new. But if I did have the chance to start younger, I would. That's the thing, right? Like you mentioned, like, being able to, like I was able to jog for like an hour and a half straight and my legs won't feel it. Now it's like the minute I'm done jogging, I'm like on the massage chair making sure my legs are all good. Like it's a totally different thing. Like back hurting, I fall asleep by like 10 p.m. Like it's a
Oh
whole
boy.
different
Yeah.
thing.
I also am in bed by 10. Yeah. Different things. And I think this is part of it, right? We're talking earlier about sharing and being seen and this idea of self-promotion. And I think that these stories, especially as we take on age, we also have more complex stories of how are we going to be seen. I One of my favorite things that I've always heard, especially of like, how do we continuously talk about or share our journeys when we're experiencing self-doubt is just by creating a simple framework that works, that like we can go back to, that allows us to share the scars as well as the wins, or even the wounds, even in the moment, as well as the wins. And I think that's a really important part of it. Do you talk about that in your book at all?
Like a framework for storytelling
Or
or
not necessarily
no?
just how it doesn't have to be a framework, but like how do you share, or the struggle with self promotion? As you said, a lot of women are
Oh,
told that when they promote, they're being tacky.
yes. I have a whole chapter on that in the book because I understand that a lot of women, even men, don't like to promote themselves. They think, yes, they think it's tacky. They think it's not ladylike, it's not proper. And so for me, I've been telling people that self-promotion is empowering. And it is, right? I share a story of the Barbie movie, right? The Barbie movie came out I think last year or 2 years ago, and you couldn't go anywhere in the summer without seeing the color pink, seeing Barbie collaborate with all these different companies, like having an Xbox Barbie version, a Barbie theme Airbnb, Barbie themed luggage, like everything, right? It was like constant promotion until the day of the movie. And because of that constant promotion, it led to the first $1 billion movie solely directed by a woman. And that's a big deal because for so long, Hollywood kept telling us that women aren't bankable. Women aren't bankable. Women aren't bankable. But yeah, here's a movie about a doll that made over $1 billion, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a big deal because if one woman can do it, then other women can do it. It opened doors for other women directors to have big budget movies, and it's also breaking history. So for me, that's what self promotion does. And for me, self promotion is also a big leadership skill because there's so many things that it prepares you to do when you put yourself out there. And so I have a whole chapter on that. I have different strategies where you can learn to promote and not feel tacky if you still feel that way, right? And it takes practice. When I put myself out there, I don't like putting myself out there either. Like it's really, for me, it's still very uncomfortable. When people congratulate me on my book in person, like I still feel like I still feel awkward and uncomfortable, and it's like I still feel that, right? But I also realize that it's not just about me. um that's why having, like you mentioned, purpose and alignment is so important, because it's important for other women to see, if she can do it, so can I. Here's someone who went for it, who's showing up, who's constantly showing up. Even if you don't even know what that outcome is, the importance is being persistent. The more they keep seeing you, the more they see it in themselves, right? And especially if you're promoting a product or service, like back in the day, they said that a client needs to see your product or service 7 times before they make a buying decision. Well, in the world of social media, it's like 5 times that amount. So if you're only sharing your thing once, not everybody's gonna see it. So you're gonna have to, promote it, promote it. And there's different ways to do that. It's not always like, hey, buy my product, buy my product. You can incorporate storytelling. I mean, I share different ways for um the readers to do that. Men can also gain from it as well. And I thought it was really important to have a whole chapter on self promotion because this is still a big problem that most women go through till this day.
Absolutely. One of the things I always think about, if anyone feels like they are struggling with self promotion, is to realize that you're making an offer, not an ask. And I think this is key. So even if you're asking, like when we think about self promotion, we feel like what we're doing is almost like begging, right? We are telling people to give us something. We're telling people to go buy something. We're telling people to go and get something. And we don't realize that inherently that is a diminishment of the value that we're actually trying to create. You're here creating a product, in this case, a book, but you're putting out an offer of value in an exchange of value. There's something here that benefits the other person. You just happen to have the experience and awareness of how this person can benefit. Now, that's all you can really do at any given point. And it doesn't matter if what you're asking for is a promotion or what you're asking for is to someone buy your book or even just go download something on your website. The core of it is realizing, how do I know that this person can benefit? How do I make sure that what I'm providing is value? And then why would we ever need to apologize for providing value, for sharing something that's going to potentially really make a benefit in somebody else's life? Why do we question that? At what point do we pick that up as a story? And I think once we can let go of the story and we can start to see the value and the worth that not only does our work have, but also what we have. And I think that's the real change that really makes that difference. And how do we show up with other people?
I love that. And I love that how you pre-frame it to, you're not asking, you're making an offer. It's up to the person if the offer makes sense to them. But it of course the client wants to see a result, right? What's the result that you're going to give them when you perform that service, right? Whether it's a book, whether it's a coaching service, speaking, what is that outcome? And when you can perform that outcome, that builds our confidence. And I think sales is an important skill that every woman needs to learn, right? It's not always sexy, especially when you get rejected. But it's also really empowering when you can make your own money, ask for someone's credit card, and you'd be surprised how many people will hand in their credit card when you just ask for it. When you're like selling a product or service, it's actually like surreal sometimes or like surprising, right? Because they trust you. They know you're providing something that will create a positive impact. So I love that you mentioned that. I think it's so important. And I hope the listeners will gain a lot from all the topics we mentioned. So and excited for your book to come out too.
Yeah, I'm so excited for both of these things because I think that's the impact, right? If there are people out there who know that they have something that they can offer, who feel that they might have something to offer, and this for me such a big word around this, the word potential, and I think that it's for me, I grew up with thinking that like I have to meet this potential of who I am in the world, etc. And it could get really heavy in the back of our head because we start associating everything that we're offering as part and reflection of us. So when we're making an offer, let's say in this case, like, oh, go buy this book, and somebody rejects it, we take it as a personal rejection, like they're rejecting you, but it's not. They're just rejecting this particular thing. And even the idea of sales, like if you've ever tried to sell something and felt really uncomfortable because you fear that rejection, because at some point you took that idea that rejection is about rejection of you, then you're missing out on the fact that a sales pitch really is just an education around the alignment between what they're going through as a problem that they want to solve and the value you can provide. And once you start seeing that, it's like, oh, you're not into it? That's great. Okay. I'm sorry to hear that, but I hope that you find something else that fits your needs. I'm going to go move on to something, or maybe you haven't quite understood it yet, and maybe I could re-educate or try to educate in a different way so that you understand why it is that it helps. And ultimately, if we're in integrity of doing that, and we're connected to the purpose and the why, then it's never an ask. It's never taking energy. It's always coming from we're providing, we're giving, we're offering, and we're elevating. I just paused there because I was like, did that land?
Yes.
I want to see if you did you agree with that?
Yeah.
And then I realized, I was just on a bit of a rant. You put two public speakers into a room. This is amazing. Okay. For those people who are wanting to find out more about the book, or more explore about the topics in it, where do they find it and where do they find you?
Yeah, for sure. So Bridging the Confidence Gap is available for purchase now. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes& and Nobles, Indigo, and other book retailers worldwide. If you'd like to connect with me, you can check out my website, sheenayapchan.com, or you can connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, um, TikTok,
Hmm.
YouTube. But my main
And
is
we're gonna get
like
all those links,
awesome.
and we're gonna put it into the show notes there so everyone can see it.
Awesome. And also on my website, there's a free self-confidence personality test, a quiz that you can take. So feel free to take that. The podcast, The Tao of Self-Confidence, is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and all other major podcasting networks. But if you forgot anything that I mentioned, just Google my name, Sheena Yapchan, because I'm the only Sheena Yapchan on the internet.
Yeah, it's a really unique name. This is wonderful. I was wondering, before we sign off, is there any maybe like one quick tip that you really always love, that you've always felt like resonated with people, that you want to share?
Yeah, I think for me, such a great question because I can give like 20 million
There's like
tips, but
80 of them.
yeah.
You don't
Um,
have to pick your favorite.
um, I think it's really important to really see how amazing you are. Like, I know that sounds cheesy, but building that self belief is really important. The more I keep talking about this gap and what really the root cause is, like, figure out what that root cause is, work through your traumas so that you can show up as your best self, so you can believe that you are more than enough to go out there and do it. I believe in you. I totally believe you are more than capable to do it, but you have to do that work. And if it means looking for help, accepting help, do it, right? You don't have to do this alone. So that would be my tip I would leave.
That's a very deep and very powerful tip. And I love that. Perfect way. All right. Anyone listening, take a look. Sheena Yap Chan and SheenaYapChan.com. Her book is already available. Go get it, especially if at any point you've always wanted to feel like more self-confident in the work that you do and the work that you're ready to create. Bridging the Confidence Gap, published by Wiley, available now. Thank you so much for being on the show again. This is not your first time, your second time. Our first episode, if you want to go take a look through, again, podcasts, anywhere you can find podcasts. Our first episode, we actually dive a little bit deeper into that first book as well, and some of the more pertinent messaging around the idea of leadership and self-ownership.
Thank you again for having me, John. Again, it was such a blast. Always great to reconnect and talk about these important topics. And I can't wait for your book to come out. So, for anyone listening, make sure you pre order John's book, Big Asian Energy.
Yeah, go get some books. Go read and elevate your mind. All right, amazing. Until next time. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed the last episode for this season, and again, we'll have a brand new season on September 2, 2025. In the meantime, you can check out past episodes of the podcast and make sure to order Bridging the Confidence Gap on Amazon, Barnes& and Nobles, Indigo, and other book retailers worldwide. Tune in to the next episode in a new season. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to another amazing episode of The Tao of Self-Confidence. You can order your copy of Asian Women Who Boss Up book by visiting our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits.